As you probably know, I'm currently in the country of Chile, the city of Valdivia, which is in the northern hemisphere. So we are currently going to, yeah, you might say it's winter. It's winter time. We are now in the last outskirts of winter here, and that means, of course, we don't have summer. When we don't have summer, that means that it's a little bit colder. Now we don't have it so bad as it's in Germany and other North European country. Maybe it's more comparable to maybe Italy or Spain. Our temperatures here at night maybe go to 2 degrees or barely close to zero. So we don't have freezing temperatures, we don't have snow either or something like that. So for me as a German, it's basically just a long autumn. In between we have some rain, but it feels a lot more cold when we have a clear sky and no clouds above. This basically the clouds with the traps the heat way better. Oh, yeah, that might also be like topic almost with climate change, but with the greenhouse effect. But yeah, you feel that it's a lot colder when there are no clouds and you have all the heat going directly into space, radiating out, and nothing in between. And then it can get quite cold here, especially since the houses here is basically just wood. We have most of the houses here, with the exception for some concrete buildings, are made out of wood. So you have a framework out of 2x4s at least, or 2x6. So like this white beams that make like a framing. So you have a skeleton of a house, and then you attach layers of wood to it. And now they use those big plywoods, so basically wood scraps glued together, which is pretty cheap and does a job as well. And our house here, which is a little bit older, I would assume maybe 60 years or something, we are fortunate that we have like some nice wood beams, not wood beams, but yeah, this, I don't know, shingles or something. Yeah, it's like more normal wood, so it's a little bit lighter, maybe definitely better looking and a little bit more has more integrity, structural integrity. Well, but that aside, it's still not very isolating. Our windows are also just single pane, and even with a double pane we have gaps everywhere, air is going in and out, so you can completely ditch heat insulation. Insulation here is more borrowed name than actually a function. So that being said, heating done in Chile, outside of Santiago, maybe in Santiago itself, the biggest city in Valdivia, and yeah, maybe center for half of Chileans inhabitants. Many are heating with wood. Chile has lots of nature and they are able to grow lots of wood, mostly eucalyptus, which is not really a perfect wood for burning, but it grows fast. Then they dry it for a long time and then put it in the ovens to fire. And in cold nights, so then when you go outside, you have big clouds of fog. But what I want to get to is the opportunities that they are blocking themselves out by having this cheap alternative to heating. So basically they it's fine, we just use wood, we don't pay so much for it, and then they have no big reason to look for alternatives, especially since alternatives that I want to come to have a high investment cost, upfront investment. And this, of course, in Chile is not wind energy or solar or wave energy, which actually some entrepreneurs down here in Chile, they build like wave power plants, as I said already for my video about photovoltaic. So electricity out of solar, out of the sun energy. That wave energy, I see it as a second tier solar energy, just as a small repetition. Solar energy heats up the air in different areas on the planet. That means then that the air goes from the hot region to from the cold region to the hot region, because the hot air goes up, the cold air goes down, and then you have the circle, and on the surface you have then the airstream. So this is like the first tier, the sub energy of solar. So instead of catching solar energy, if you catch wind energy, then you get like this iteration where there's already a lot of loss. And then you have wave energy, which is basically then the air touching over the water, which is not flat, but which has like some waves, and which then get pushed, and then from this like incremental wind energy that pushes on the waves over a long time, you then get like an up and down motion, which you convert back into energy. So the efficiency there, I can't really get excited about that. Let's say that. So and that's not tidal wave. Tidal wave might be interesting if you build something big enough. If you have, for example, like with the Netherlands, a big dam where you can use the energy from the tidal waves, so from the gravitational force of the moon at night, that pulls lots of water towards it, and of course then very, very high upfront investment cost. But what Chile has, what is very unique to it, I don't know, is that it has lots of thermal energy, geothermal energy. So you might be aware of the fire ring, or ring of fire, what it's called, which is basically a ring that you can lay around the west coast of the United States, west coast of South America, and then you go down Antarctica, up Australia and the Philippines, and then Japan, and then you over the Bering Strait, you close the circle again around the I think it's the Pacific continental plate. If that's one big one, I think you might even be able to separate that one, but that's typically this ring of fire where you have a lot of thermal activity, geothermal activity, and Chile is just smack on that ring. And since Chile is not so big, you can imagine that lots of Chile is on that. You have many volcanoes, and of course also earthquake activity in Chile, and it's prime, just has a very, very easy access to it. So the easier access is towards the Andes, of course, where there are also the volcanoes. So there the continental plate is pushed over the Pacific plate, and then you have the hills growing, and Chile is pretty much like on this side of it. So this is where the magma comes up. So you have a little bit hill where the Pacific is bulging against it. This is where Chile sits on, and then on the other side with the Andes, you then have the area where the magma stores, and then you have volcanoes and geysers. So you need to get closer to the Andes. So basically you are getting higher in altitude, but then also you get still closer to the seed source, which is named from officials as a flaw, because there's not much access into the Andes. You don't have so many roads, It's far away from cities and streets, but if you have a power plant, it's not really a great attraction. So it might be even pretty good if you are a little bit further away. You build in a road, you build everything there for the power plant. You have you make the drilling one time, put in the pipes, and then you get the water out. So right now I think Chile has one power plant that is actually in operation. I couldn't really find much data about it. If someone has some good sources about it, please send them to me. I could just see that it has one power plant. The rest comes all from coal and gas energy, which is first world. Cheap, definitely cheap, reliable, but with this availability of geothermal energy, a bad excuse. So I think there's a lot of opportunity, not only to tap into some nice, more or less free or at least very cheap energy supply for generations to come. And I think if they would tap into that, find a way to build those power plants cheap and without disturbing the tectonic plates, so that they are also proof against earthquakes, and most especially not causing earthquakes in the first place, then Chile could have the potential not only supplying itself with very cheap and lots of energy, getting rid of all those fireplaces, so you could heat everything with electricity. You could have a lot of electricity for other means, getting industry to Chile, increasingly also with like energy heavy industry. You don't have steel industry in Chile. Just as a side note, you don't find double T beams in Chile, for example. It's all sheet metal that gets bent into place, and you have rarely something out of cast iron, because that would have to be made out of Chile, maybe in Brazil or Argentina, or most likely in China, and then shipped to Chile, because Chile doesn't, I haven't seen anywhere in Chile where it has the capacity to do something like this, especially not in bigger scale. So and this would open up Chile to do all that, and not only produce cheap and indefinite energy for itself, but potentially for whole South America, which would make it a big income source in parallel to currently all their copper supplies that make them a big player. It's a big impact, which has a big impact on Chilean economy and the welfare of its people. And how this goes, there can be some other videos where I talk about that.